Right. Oh, good evening. I think good time to start. People will keep joining in. And thank you very much to join us here on our monthly session. Our star facilitator, Vivek, is missing today, so I'm just filling in for him. It would never be the same. I will try. So today we have this much awaited session, which will be anchored by Paras. So it is much awaited in many ways. So this is the first session that Paras is anchoring for Pune chapter, after 2 years of being a chapter member. That's the first thing. Second, also much awaited because many of you who were present for the last AMAC session, which was anchored by Mahesh, would remember that the topic about where do the boundaries between coaching and mental health practitioners, they fuse or they're different, or what care should we be taking, and all those things. I think some of those questions were raised, and hence this session serves as a very, very good, I would say, follow through from that session. Also, of course, I think last week was the mental health day, and therefore, again, this falls in the mental health awareness week, which is I think a good timing for this topic. As always, of course, we will begin our session by celebrating people who have just attained their certification, ICF credentialing newly. So I know about 3 people, and so we know Anirudh Kulkarni is the addition to our credentialed coaches. So many congratulations to Anirudh for
Thank you.
his ACC. Well done.
Thank you so much.
And then we know Ranu Mishra also is the freshest credential now holder in ICF Pune. I don't know whether Ranu is here, but so she's our newest ACC. And Poonam Jain,
Jayashree, so sorry to interrupt. Ranu is just joined in,
cool.
so maybe we
Oh,
can
yes, we will just,
congratulate
yeah,
her.
she's in the waiting room, yes. Is she there?
Ranu, can you hear us? I think she can hear us.
So Ranu, we are congratulating you on your credentialing. Well done.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. It's such a happy day.
Yes, of course. And grateful that you're celebrating it with us.
Definitely. ICF Pune had been had played its part in my accreditation. So yes, you guys are important.
Thank you. Thank you. And then Poonam Jain attended her PCC, I think just last week. I'm not sure that she is. I'm not seeing her here. But any which way, congratulations to her. Is there anyone else whom I have missed? And even if you belong to any other chapter, that's fine. We are here to celebrate your credentialing any which way. So please, you could unmute yourself and go ahead. Fair enough. Any birthdays in October?
Me.
Aparna. Oh,
and it's on the 30th. It's on the
30th of October. Okay.
Yes.
Many happy returns of the day in advance.
In advance. Thank you.
It's mine too on the 23rd.
Awesome. Happy birthday in advance.
Chalo Goa.
Chalo Goa, I know. So for all of you, I think Chalo Goa has been our tagline since the beginning, that we've been wanting to have outing, a get together for the chapter at Goa or some such exotic location. So once I think travel opens up, we will certainly be there. Thank you. Thanks, Raman. Thank you. Kalpesh, if you have any other announcement to make, please do. Otherwise, we will welcome Paras and request him to.
I think we can get started, Jayashree.
Yeah, okay. So thanks, Paras. I think there are, I wonder whether there would be anybody in this room who would not know Paras. And I don't have his CV open in front of me. It's impossible to by heart it. I just know that he has a doctorate and he's an MCC and he's also an EMCC and a mentor coach for both. Also, I think apart from coaching, he also runs a very noble initiative, Tava Mitram. I think the community is really grateful to you for that, Paras. And Thank you so much. I think who else could we get as a speaker to talk about this delicate topic, which talks about the grayness of the boundaries and how do we transcend them? So all yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jayashree, and namaste to everyone. Good evening. Warm welcome to this particular program. It's an honor. And also I like the way Jayashree said that after 2 years, you're coming. So that was a compliment, as well as that was another learning that, hey, Paras, you better be on that Pune chapter on your monthly meetings and things. So thanks so much. It's a great honor to be here. And I would love to present to all of you a topic that was created way back after the pandemic started, and a lot of pressure that came to coaches who were looking after doing coaching, but many other things came up, which was counseling, therapy, and what to address, what not to address. So in a lot of supervision, I identified that it could be a good opportunity for all of us to talk about this. So what I present to all of you is drawing boundaries and building bridges. So it's a very metaphoric language, which is going to connect to ICF core competencies of contracting, ethics, creating awareness, and many other things. I think they're all so beautiful competencies. They just flow in the whole session. So before I could go ahead, I would like to check in with all of you. How are you feeling at this moment? And where are you? Are you with me? Are you somewhere else? How are you? Just want to quickly check in with everyone here. So there is a chat section here, what I see. Feel free to put your thoughts in the chat section. I'll be happy to hear your comments. People saying totally you. Okay, present. I think just listening to this question itself helps me out a lot that you are with me. If you're not with me at any place, feel free to close your eyes and draw yourself back. Today, I would love to also invite you all to participate in the session. Let me just check if I could share the screen with all of you. So drawing boundaries and building bridges. With this whole pandemic, which started out, I would like to first congratulate all coaches who are present here, and also coaches who are doing an outstanding job here of supporting people by providing great hope. I'd like to also acknowledge ICF, Pune, and many other chapters, and also ICF as a whole body for supporting during COVID and supporting and giving hopes to people that, hey, you're not alone, we're all with you. I always get a sense when I'm with ICF as a feeling of community. And that's where I would like to just start with my thoughts about connection of pandemic and rising need of mental health. This section is divided into 4 parts. The first part, I would like to talk about how pandemic has an impact on different social groups, society, or different groups like family system or institutions, schools, society at large, community at large, at various levels. And then connect it back to how coaches have to encounter different types of clients and how can you be mindful. Towards the end part of the conversation, I would like to also look at drawing boundaries to self-care for coaches and building bridges, and finally taking through Tava Mitram. Tava Mitram is the organization that I represent today, which is called as Sanskrit Your Friend, and you're not alone. So in the same way, I would like to probably put up some stats here. This is a little information. I would love you to also read it. This PPT would be available to all of you. So according to WHO, the COVID-19 pandemic is highlighting the need to urgently increase investment in services for mental health, or risk a massive increase in mental health conditions in the coming years. The impact of pandemic on people's mental health is already extremely concerning, said Dr. Tedros, Director General of World Health Organization. Social isolation, fear of contagion, and loss of family members is compounded by the distress caused by loss of income and often employment. So let us see what is happening in India. On the occasion of World Mental Health Day, there was a conference between the mental health workers where the professor and head of psychiatry department at Ludhiana's Dayanand Medical College and Hospital, Dr. Ranjivi Mahajan said, the number of patients with mental health issues has increased by almost 70% during the pandemic due to rising fears and uncertainty. Dr. Pallavi from Christian Medical College and Hospital said the anxiety, apprehensions, unemployment, social distancing, lack of physical contact with other family members, increasing rate of suicide, drug abuse, and depression have become widespread as the world struggles to bring the coronavirus under control. So it seems to be like a great space for all of us to explore that there is a rising need of mental health. And what role do you play, or what role do I play when I'm working with my clients? So I have a question for all of the team members, all of the people who are watching me right now. And maybe I'm just going to put that on the chat. And the question for all of you is, chat. Sum up the time period from Jan 2020 till September 2020 in 3 words. And I would like to know more about your thoughts, emotions, and actions. What comes to your mind? Self-awareness, Rohini says, change, uncertainty, fear, anxiety, awakening, transformative, frustration, resilience, fear, deep growth. Shishma says hope, desire to help. Some says anxiety, uneasiness. Just be aware about the words that we're reading and what are we exploring about it. The next question that I have for you is, do you feel overburdened as a coach due to rising need of mental health issue due to pandemic? I repeat it again, do you feel overburdened as a coach due to rising need of mental health issues due to pandemic? Thank you. Thank you so much. For me, I think this answer resonates a lot more. It's a huge pressure. It's a huge pressure on me when I'm looking at, because there are different people and there are a lot of places that I'm not aware. So I have to let go of my be strong driver and a be perfect driver that, hey, I have to be all okay with my clients, because there are a few things even I was totally unaware what my clients are going through or what are they transferring in that particular conversation. For some people, yes, it shows that there is not at all a kind of pressure, which is fantastic. But for people who have gone through this and have a pressure or things, it's a good space for you to explore, and it's okay to feel that, because this is completely a different chapter we opened up unexpectedly. And for people who answered my question as, yes, we felt. My question to you all is, how would you like to unburden the pressure? 1 or 2 lines. Think about it. Mindfulness practice, wonderful, yeah. Help the client reflect more, meditation. Mindfulness, talk to people, being aware, empathy. Thank you. Sounds like a very great thing that you all are doing, and I'm so grateful for the same to you. What I would also like to share with all of you, the impact of pandemic has really had an impact at various different places. So to start with family members, where it was always a dream that we all need to be together. But then it was this pandemic which really made people locked together at one place. The elders as well as the children were not supposed to just be taken care, but also need to be protected. Where there was a lot of children got boredom and sitting at home and frustrated. Again, that gave rise to a lot of frustration and anxiety, just being locked in one house. While at the middle-aged people or people who were like maybe parents or working professional had a lot of pressure on them, not just taking care of the family, but also doing their household chores, as well as doing a lot of work at home. And at the same time, if you're a working professional, or maybe you're just sitting with a laptop and a computer or on a table and working there, at the same time you're handling family. So there was a huge pressure, again, impacting their communication style. A lot of anger and frustrations were noticed in due course of this particular time. And even after post-lockdown, we see, in my experience, what I'm sharing is there's a lot of communication issues that is rising up. While schools and institutions where people even did not know, technology was not, people were not very technology savvy. I'm not talking about schools which are already well developed, but a lot of developing schools where watching and learning via a WhatsApp is a complete disaster. People are not trained, kids are not trained, impacting their health. Sitting at one place for longer time, again, creates a lot of anxiety and pressure, leading to many sort of dysfunctional negative emotions. Again, with that, with the internet not working, because a lot of pressure for people who are being at home, a lot of consumption of internet. So again, that leads to a lot of instability or discomfort. While in society, locality, and neighborhood, what I am aware about is even a small message that, okay, we found one person, and then the whole society talking about it, creating a lot of pressure on people, passing this WhatsApp messages, again, creating and adding a lot of dysfunctional negative emotions. Again, people are feeling afraid, scared, and then a lot of pressure that builds up in their communication style. At workplace, it was always to be work from home like a dream, but today we see people are complaining they want to go back to office with the building pressure of pay cuts and loss of jobs and opportunities. People are in a deep depression or deep space of discomfort. I also got a lot of information from the HR professionals that we are so scared to even call our employees because the moment we call, they feel that, are you going to throw us away? And then the next one was about community at large. What are we transferring from our community messages? So are we mindful about the WhatsApp messages or Facebook messages that we share? Because a lot of fear is getting transferred in the community at large. So when we look at all of these things, there is a huge need for, is there a PPT? There is a huge need for mental health coming up, rising all over the globe. And specifically in our country, if you see, we do not have any license for therapists or counselors. So everybody is acting from various different roles. Maybe people have done some studies and they probably tend to do it. But what I would like to ask everybody out here who are listening to my voice, what are different roles played by mental health workers? Maybe it's a good start to talk about how do you differentiate coach, therapist, and counselor? So here, if I would like to get an opportunity to divide you into teams, maybe for say 8 minutes max or 6 minutes max, to just share your thoughts, how do you differentiate mental health workers? While I look at coach also playing the role of a mental health worker some way, so I would like to know more your thoughts on the same. So, is there any way we could, put people in teams quickly and give them 6 minutes?
We can. How many people do you want in one room?
Just divide randomly, Jayashree, maybe.
No, but how many in one room? So
5 would be better, 5 or 6.
5.
So if you're giving 6 minutes, we'll give 6 minutes, 6 people. If you're giving So that way we can keep it. Time
You
check.
can, so, okay. So 6 people per room, 6 minutes, 8 minutes. Let's just give them 8 minutes, no?
Okay, 8 minutes, Jayashree. I agree. Maybe my anxiety is coming up that I need to ensure that my chapter has to go on. Okay.
No
So
problem.
what are the different roles played by mental health workers, coach versus therapist versus counselor? Think about this question, share your thoughts with your team members, and once you get an answer, just put that on the WhatsApp, on the message that we have right now, the chat section that we have. But once you come back in the room, the main room.
Okay, 7 minutes, 6 to 7. So I'm opening all the rooms, people.
Hi, Jayashree.
Hi, you dropped out of a
Yes, room number 2.
room. Assign, okay. Assign to 2. You dropped out, kya?
Yeah, I don't know, something was wrong and it took me such a long time to log back in. I was like, okay. My laptop crashed yesterday, so I'm feeling like a fish out of water.
My God, you use Mac, right?
Yeah.
Arre
No, it's
bapre.
not crash. I think something is wrong with the display, Display nahi ho raha hai. Went 2 days, I've been going around the service center. They said, madam, iska replacement aapko 50,000 lagega. And I'm like,
Correct.
usse naya wala aa jayega.
That's the thing that happened with me also last year, exactly a year ago. So finally I bought a new laptop.
तो अभी मेरा कुछ जुगाड़ चल रहा है कि I will probably put a monitor, external monitor.
Acha, correct. If only displays.
Yeah, right now it's only display, but I feel so helpless. It's like nothing to do whole day. I was like looking. I was actually reading newspaper today.
We are back in the meeting, I think so.
Okay.
Yes. Good.
All right, everybody. So I'm just curious now to check how was your discussion with your team? Is everybody back in the room?
Yes, I think so.
Yes, Paras, they are.
Yeah.
We see all 44 here.
Yeah, we were automatically transported back.
Fantastic.
Yes.
So anyone or maybe would like to just jump in and share what did you really take away from that part? What are the different roles played by mental health workers, coach, therapist, and counselor? Maybe I just require maybe 2 or 3 people max to jump in. How was your discussion in the room?
So hi, I'm Daya here, and hi. So our group discussed the kind of roles that were played, which were more focused towards well-being of people, towards balancing during the new unprecedented situation. Coaches played the role of more of a career coach, but at the same time there was more demand on looking after the mental health and keeping everything alive in them at this point of time. So coaches played more of a balancing role as well, along with the career coaching, because many of them had lost jobs. So those kind of discussions happened in our group.
Thank you, Daryl. Anyone else?
Yeah, Parak, this is Vinay here. Can I take on?
Yes, Vinay.
Parak, we want to differentiate between a coach, the therapist, and a counselor. So my take in brief is that coach has to exist in the present moment with the coachee and help the coachee to move forward from there. However, there are a number of coaches who also try and go up to a stage and want to go a little deeper when there is the mental issue is aggravated for the coachee. But I think there is a gray zone there, and there is some limit beyond which I think the coach cannot go. Because he's not trained into psychoanalytic issues, which he can examine better. And that a point he has to understand, he or she has to understand, and then refer the person to therapist who is trained to go much deeper into the background of the coachee, to those past areas years back, and then bring the person back into the present moment. That is, I think, is a fundamental difference. But if the coaches, I feel, are trained into psychoanalytic areas, probably they would be able to recognize the boundary, and if they find that the mental condition is of a stage where they can handle, then they should probably take it on. Otherwise, I think they need to stop and refer to the therapist.
Okay. Thank you, Vinay, for conceptualizing the boundaries concept about the roles played by a counselor, therapist, or a coach. Any last one from other groups?
Yeah. So if I can share, Paras?
Yes.
So in our group, we discussed, of course, the distinction between the roles of a coach, therapist, and counselor. Each one is a separate, profession and expertise in itself. So as a coach, one needs to be careful if the client needs some kind of help. For example, if they are in a deep anxiety or depression, or and they need some help from a therapist, then that needs to be recommended by the coach instead of trying to resolve that if that is beyond his or her expertise. That's one thing that came out very clearly. One thing which I remember is I think in the month of March or April, when this pandemic actually started, lockdown started, I was part of a cohort started by ICF Pune chapter, and we had coaches from India as well as from Australia. And in all the conversations, we were talking about the anxiety that all of us we were going through. And it was not a depression, and it was not that, but it was anxiety that what is going to happen, all of that. And while my clients were also going through that. So as a coach as well, I was sensitive of what is going on with the clients. They may not be depressed and they may not need a therapist at that point in time, but was I careful enough? Was I sensitive enough and aware enough to support them through that situation? At the same time, supporting myself, that is the self-care part, that am I taking care of myself as a coach so that I can support my clients and I can support myself and my family at the same time. That is something that I experienced during that time.
Wow.
Thank you
for sharing that, Hemant. That's very powerful. And what I want to bring it to everyone awareness is that brilliantly you have described about coaching, therapy, and counselor. Let's take an example. Well, in counseling, because I also come from a mental health background, so in counseling, we learned a lot of coaching things. In therapy, I learned a lot about therapy and counseling and coaching. So there was always this blurred line. Now, how do I know, am I really doing coaching? Am I doing counseling, or am I doing therapy? How do I get to know if the client says that I have anxiety? Now, anxiety can be just an expression of the words, the grandiose word of, hey, I'm just feeling maybe too much of energy in my body. I just don't know, what do I do? But I use a fancy word that, no, I'm feeling depressed, but later on it's just sadness. So when I look back to the role that a counselor, therapist, or a coach does is an unconditional positive regards, just being with the client, by supporting the client, by working with the client and ensuring the client is growing in their age, in the psychological age. So when I look back to psychotherapy, it is a lot to deal with therapy, to deal with the child or child stories, where we could be very past tense. While counseling and coaching in many schools do not have a differentiation. But from the ICF standpoint, when we look at, we don't get into the narratives or content of the matter. We all know that. So if a client comes and tells me that, Paras, I'm feeling a lot of anger issue these days, I feel like breaking things. So is this a coaching issue? Is it a counseling issue? Do I need to put my hands up and say, hey, please go to a counselor? It's not me. Or if a client says that I'm feeling depressed these days, but how do I know whether it's a clinical depression or is it a depression about maybe just an expression of deeper sadness? Or the client is just feeling very sad and will need some sort of resourceful spaces to access. And that's where I would like to bring all your attention. If there are any questions for me, feel free to put that on the chat box. I'll be happy to answer them as well. So there's a bigger question to a lot of coaches who are purely doing coaching, that how do we deal with how do we first identify the non-coaching issues and how do we deal with them? So let's take a little slide here. That these are the 6 things that I could really talk this evening, and we could make it very conversational. If there are any questions, you can always ask me if you don't understand any meaning, because I've just picked up some technical words as well. If anybody if you're not on mute, put yourself on mute. Will be very helpful, so that I can listen. I can share my thoughts as well to you. So the thoughts that I share with all of you today is dealing with coaching and non-coaching issues. So one of the non-coaching issues for me that I have experienced could be transference, counter-transferences, and projections. So when I'm working, let's take an example. I'm working with a client who is time and again, maybe I work for about 6 sessions with the client, and I start observing, because I'm not judging the client, I'm not diagnosing the client, I'm not doing any assessments clinical trials for the clients. But then I start observing and sensing that the client is sharing or throwing a lot of transferences on the coach. Maybe there's a lot of words that comes up on you directly, or maybe another example. Recently, I was working with one client who started talking about his boss, whom he's working with, that he has a lot of anger issue and he feels very angry about her for no reason. And when I just simply asked him, what does that anger mean to you? Or where is this anger taking you? And the person went right back to his mother and has his issues with his mother and anger issues. And that was a time for me to really be aware that maybe this is not a coaching issue. It needs some more conscious attempts and more clinical, non-clinical, or counseling and therapeutic work. Now, again, it's a corporate client, so how do I deal with it? Now, confidentiality is a part of it, where my client protection is very important. At the same time, I see a lot of these stuff being spoken. And that's where our boundaries needs to be drawn very well. And the bridges is to communicate. Looks like this is not an area that I could expertise in, because my job is more about supporting you to think better and feeling more comfortable. So maybe I can be with you and acknowledge this is what you're going through. But if these are continuing anger issues or any sort of dysfunctional negative emotions, would require a lot of intervention of a mental health worker, which is not a coach, but maybe somebody else. So I'm going to pause here. I'm going to check it with the group if there are any questions for me. Okay, so Chakor says that I want to know more about counseling. Okay, so if there are any questions on the point number 1, or if you have any thoughts and maybe thoughts to share, please feel free to chat in the box. So counseling for me, what I relate to is supporting the client in the here and now to work with their day-to-day issues. Maybe I have a difficulty dealing with my boss, and maybe a counselor could work with the content of the story, with helping me out, not always as a content, it could be also contextual discussions. But when I'm doing coaching, probably I would like to move forward to ask the client, what do you want from this discussion? So changing your brain waves to what do you want versus what you don't want. Maybe in counseling, I'm supporting the client in their day-to-day basis to cope with the current situation. So coping is something which I look at. How do I manage? How do I cope better in a situation with the content, which could be a counseling? But in coaching, I would probably go very different. I would like to stick to the context of the client. So moving on to the next, another areas of coaching that we can draw boundaries, could be ethical part comes to my mind, is conflict of interest. Like I had areas where I was working with a client and the client's partner came in and she also registered for coaching, and we were talking about developing relationship issues. I'm also into life coaching and private practice. So when we were doing that, it was when she came in and she said that I would like to also get coached by you, was more like not very comfortable, because we are not doing some sort of group coaching or a team coaching. It was purely, I was working with that client. So at that moment, if I also accept the other person, the partner, would create a lot of conflict. So that's another area that as coach, I would like, or any other mental health worker, I would like to draw boundaries here and say that, hey, this is not, I would be comfortable with. I also learned this in the past couple of years, being with my coach, whom I said that, okay, I have a family member who also wants to get coached by you. And the person said, Paras, you're with me for the last 4 years. I would invite you to have somebody else for your family member. And that's what something resonates a lot more. But hey, this is not something that I would indulge into unless it's contracted well. The third area that I felt that could be a non-coaching area for me, when a client comes to me with his family system, where his family wants him or me to coach rather than train him or tell him that this is the right way to behave. Maybe here, again, the boundaries come out very loud. A very joint families that I work with, or company heads, when I'm working with maybe say about Apex team, and there are 4 or 5 people I'm working with, The top head wants from there that you need to tell them, you need to coach them in this particular manner, or get the things done from this particular way. So become more like a messenger rather than a coach to work with. Again, here I find to be more like a conflict of interest. I like to draw boundaries about what is my role, what do I offer in a corporate or in a life coaching setup. The fourth area that comes with a non-coaching issue for me is when coach is unaware. It just sends to you that, hey, go and get coached, you need coaching. And the coach, when I ask them, what are you really looking at? Or how are you looking at? What do you really want? There are no answers to it. The fifth one is secretive client, further sharing societal. So I had this experience with one of the clients who's very secretive to start with the conversation, very quiet. We worked, I contracted well, we started talking, but was very quiet for almost 3 to 4 sessions. And I was wondering, there's something more to this. So further in the session, the client comes and tells me that, hey, I want to share something to you, that these days I feel like I want to give it up. I don't want to stay. I don't want to be live. Maybe that's again an area for me, a non-coaching. Maybe at that moment I can be with my client and I can talk to the client. At the same time, it's very important to put your foot down and say that, hey, that's not the risk I want to take. I don't have that credentials, or even if I have the will, do I have the skill to operate with? So it's very important to be mindful about what are you enrolling yourself for when you're working with clients. And the sixth one is one of the recent cases that I worked with, and I really had to be mindful about it, where a client who wanted to get coached came up with having difficulty in studying, and that's what we started the goal. In the further session, the client brings out to be having some hysteric sexual fantasies to work with. And I said that I could not be the right person to work with. Even if you have a subject knowledge expert of a particular thing, you want to have unconditional positive regards for your client, it's important to draw a line and work and inform the client, hey, this is something an expertise could help you. So these are the areas that I felt, and there could be many areas that comes to mind, to the discussion that could be a non-coaching issues. So maybe I would like to check it with all of you here. Have you come across some area where you feel, or you have some sharing to do? Okay, so Heyman says that, Paris, I'm not clear about conflict of interest case here. Please explain why. Sure, Heyman. In the meanwhile, let me first check with everyone. If you have any questions for me, or if you want to share your thoughts about how have you successfully done it, will be great. Or how clear are you when you're drawing boundaries with clients, when you're working with clients who come up to you with not, which is in the purview of coaching, but something plus. So for me, in the meanwhile, Heyman, when I say conflict of interest is when I got a client and his spouse came in, and I've been working with that client for almost 3 months, and he was working on a relationship issues. So when I'm working with a client on a relationship issue, the client is talking about the partner difficulty and how he wants to create a relationship with the person. And if I'm taking the other client as well, I would be contaminated with a lot of information. And I may also get into a biases of supporting and being a rescuer for my clients. So it's important to draw that boundary that if I'm working with this client on this goal, which involves the other partner's conversations, stories, or context, it's important to draw that boundary there. So in a family system, if I'm working with a client, if the whole family of 4 or 5 members are getting coached, it's more like a systemic approach I look at. But if I'm working with one client and I get the same from the other partner, and that's not a part of my contract, then it is going to raise a lot of insecurity for my clients, and my client safety is very, very important. Let me give you one of the corporate example. Even if I'm working with corporates, with clients out there, I'm very mindful if I have 2 or 3 group coaching assignment and an individual coaching assignment. If it's with everybody doing individual work is good. But if one of them says privately to me that, hey, Paras, I would like to do some live coaching with you separately out of this organization contract, but but he's still in the contract and I'm still in the part of the contract. So how can I be mindful to say that maybe after this contract is done, we can talk about it? Because it could also be another strategy to elude you into a space of, hey, be that favorite me because I'm also working with you personally. So these are various things, like how can I draw boundaries here? This could not be just a coaching issue for you. This could be more for an ethical issue for me that, hey, what do I do it? Because he's a complete different client for me, doing completely personal coaching, but I'm still engaged with him in both places. That way. Thank you very much. So
thanks, Paras.
Yeah, thank you. So there are next question about coach versus mediator. Yeah, I think that's what my fear is all about, that many a times when you do a work with a family owned business, which are pretty patriarchy or matriarchy family system, a coach is perceived to be a mediator. Okay, and that's where it's important to be clear about your contract. And that's where I want to now draw your attention to contracting. Now, from the ICA point of view, is not just about goal setting contracting, but a deeper level of how are you contracting very well with your client before even you start contracting on the goals. And it rings a bell because a lot of family members who come for coaching, they would like a particular way that to be coached. And that's where the whole boundaries issue come in. Where you need to, as a coach, I would like to draw boundaries and say, hey, this is not working well for me, because what is coaching and what is that I offer is what I would like to present to you. So that's something which resonates a lot more for me about coaching and mediator. That's the role what some clients may perceive as a coach. Like there was one client who told me that, Paras, you be the mediator and get me my love back and get me my life back for that. I said, I'm coaching business. It's not about some sort of other fantasies I have about it. If you have a concern about building your strengths, we can coach. I can coach you for that. But I can't be a mediator because that will end up me into a very gamey relationship, which could move from, if you've heard about a drama triangle, okay, which is as a persecutor, rescuer, and a victim, you can easily get eluded. And remember, as coaches, there's also a thing that we love to help people. So helping people versus rescuing are two separate, and let's draw boundaries between that. I'm mindful about that. I want to help because I have boundaries as well. Like a simple thing of my client that I work with, the WhatsApp chatting, okay, there is boundaries that I draw with clients that, hey, this is the time we can chat. You can share your thoughts. I may not answer to you quickly, but I will revert to you. But if the client calls me in the middle of the night, I am not ready to take that call. I'm not the walkie-talkie coach. So again, that also helps me again to draw the boundary and say, hey, that's my role, and I'm pretty clear about it. So thanks for that wonderful question. That was very powerful. Okay. I find it useful to do couple coaching if they are willing to work together. Absolutely. That could be a new contract, Mahesh. I agree with you. When there is a new contract, but again, that contracting is important, not just like two separate people are coming, one is coming after the other, and then they're talking against about each other. But if you're doing couple coaching, please go ahead, then recontract whatever model you have, communicate whatever boundaries you want to build in the relationship, be mindful. So I buy with that point, Mahesh, but only recontracting would be my thoughts. While again, Hemant has asked me one question. In one case, my client shared with me an issue with his wife in the area of physical intimacy. And I asked if I can coach him on that. I told him that I'm not qualified to do that. And what we stop, and we stop that topic right there. Yeah, thank you, Hemant, for endorsing about the boundaries again, that what are we comfortable working with and what are we not? And also, what is my primary contract with the client? If it's about a career and we are getting into personal, if it's something to deal with developing or something to deal with, you need some sort of care about, because physical intimacy could be a very in-depth topic about, not about only being sexual, but also emotional needs. So maybe I would I'd be happy. I'm happy with the way that you could probably say that, hey, I'm not the qualified one. Maybe my unconditional positive regard is I have another counselor you can go and support if they want. There are a couple of them available already in Pune. Few of them I know, but if that excites you, please go ahead. So again, the choice is there. Again, I'm partnering with the client there. I'm not just telling that, hey, take this and it's going to be the right. So it's more like, again, conflict of interest can come in. So much of mindfulness is required, I think so. Thanks for that, Hemant. So Pushpendra Singh says that the big challenge in transference and countertransference is to be aware of it when it actually starts happening and stopping it. Yeah, I think Pushpendra, you really hit the nail, because these are so unconscious behaviors. We are not even aware about it. There was a time when one of my clients told me that I see you as a Shiva, and I realized that a Shiva consciousness is all coming in here. And I realized that this sounds more like a transference for me, because a client is overwhelmed by the success of what she or he is getting in the session. And that was very important for me to check in after a feedback, to share with each other that, okay, from the Shiva, I do not want to get a Shiva Parvati concept, and from Ganesha and all of that. So it was very important to bring that, how is Shiva and coach. So that was a little open conversation, open discussion with a lot of sensitivity and care. Now the bigger question comes in when the Shiva is there in the corporate setup, because there again, the confidentiality is not between you and your client, but also the HR, also the sponsor, also the head. So it's very important there that how are you going to be mindfully being sensitive to draw boundaries of what you're not going to enroll in that coaching. At the same time, what are you going to say yes to in the work of the coaching? So just let me check if there are any more questions. Bruce, thank you for bringing the boundary stuff. Yeah, need to move on. Thank you for what stuff necessary for what to do or not. Need to move on. Thank you for finishing. Okay, see you, Mahesh, once again. So let me also move on to the next part of it. But before I could go next, I'm a person who would like to connect to feelings. So as you're listening to this conversation, how are you feeling about yourself right now? Maybe if you'd like to just pen it down, would be great. Maybe in the chat, how are you feeling? And listening to the boundaries. Is it overwhelming? Is it comfortable? Is it saying that, oh, I cannot do this? How are you feeling? These are just my random thoughts. Clear, okay. Reflective, conscious, feeling happy, what is bringing more clarity. Very comfortable with establishing boundaries. We are very powerful statements and thought-provoking. Thank you. I think it's really working because everybody's so supportive and participative in today's session. So I'm just moving on to the next part of it. This is something which I follow in my practice. Okay, so this may not necessary that it is a must or a should or something. So when I have to work with clients with boundaries in a corporate setup, I'm very mindful about how do I draw boundaries in my coaching space? What is coaching? What is not coaching? So this was one of the image that came to my mind when I'm looking at working with clients. I ask them, what are your 3 goals? So this does not happen with the client whom I'm working. It may be a SPOC or an HR calls me and says that there is a coaching requirement. And then I have a meeting with the sponsor, first maybe meeting with just the HR, maybe sponsor, or maybe the head, whoever wants this particular gentleman or gentlewoman wants to go for the coaching. So the sponsor, the SPOC, the coach, we all meet up, we talk. But again, time and again, I'm very mindful that I want to see my clients. And when I'm seeing my client, if you see this is like a circle that I've made it, that my client is at the center anywhere I go. So this will be here. So if I'm working with a meeting with a client later or with the SPOC, I want my client to be there. So if I'm meeting with an HR tomorrow, for any meetings, I want my coach, client, SPOC, coach, sponsor, client. So time and again, I'm mindful about that. How can I provide protection, permission, and potency in the relationship that I'm engaged in. And when I'm having this discussion with the client, time and again, my client is always with me. So that helps a lot to draw boundaries and build bridges where the client feels a lot of safety. Like, for example, when I go for meetings, if the contract session is done, we're already working with the client for 3 months, and I bump into their office, I will inform my client that I'm in the office today, okay, just to say hello to your team. So that gives a lot of trust and intimacy and safety for my client that, okay, Paras is not here to be a management consultant guy who wants to feed something to the HR or something, because my client's vulnerability is and client safety is very important for me. So I look at the word confidentiality here very highly. At any point of time, my client is with me anywhere. But when I interact with them initially, I tell them that what are your organization goals, professional goals, and personal or individual developmental goals. So here again, personal and individual would be, an individual could be your own hobby or something, and personal could be your personal life. So organization goals are more to look at from the culture perspective, what change you want from this person that I'm working with, and is that person with me in front of me, because I want an agreement with that person. If there is no agreement, we're not proceeding further. Professional goal could be, what are the competencies you want to strengthen with this client? What are the areas that you would like the client to work on? And is it accepted and confirmed by the client itself? If it's not, we're not moving further. So I'm just sharing with you, how do I operate with the model of contracting, which really at the heart talks about permission, protection, and potency. Then the personal and individual development goal, does this particular relationship that I'm engaged in, do I also work with the client on their personal goal? So let's say if it's a 15 session or a 12 session or a 24 sessions that I'm working with the clients in a corporate, at least we know that out of these ones, there are certain areas which are coming out, and then this personal individual could be 1 or 2 sessions you can work with. Again, this is clarified and verified in front of all of them. So everybody, all the stakeholders are involved here. And then once that is done, once this conversation is done, then there are certain feedback that we get in the following meeting that, okay, these are the areas that is coming up. Again, I check that, okay, clarify with my client, we all get together. These are the 5 or 3 areas that we would like the client to work on. Now in this session, in one of the sessions that my client tells me that, Paras, I have a lot of maybe anger issues these days, and it is impacting a lot at my workplace. So I'm very rude and abusive to my employees, and I really want to work with. Now it's a question whether do I put my hands up and say, hey, I'm a coach, I am not going to help you with that, or yes, you need to meet a counselor separately, or third is I'm a combination of both. I can just alter this contract together without telling anyone. Nobody knows, I'll work with you. What do you think one should do here? Maybe a question to everybody here. And if you have that question, if you have the thought in your mind, just keep it with you, maybe put that in the chat. For me, I think it's an issue where I need to be sensitive and draw effective boundaries to first explore, is this something, an expression, or is it something which is really creating an impact? The moment I am able to bring that difference and understand where the client is looking at, and then accordingly inform the client with having an open communication with how would you like to address this issue, which is impacting your team communication, it's going to impact your 180-degree feedback. How are you going to do that? What would you like to do here? So when I give that complete control to my client, that you decide whether do you want to meet up the HR, do we want to meet up the SPOC and inform them, or a sponsor, because this dialogue is important to have. So there was another case where the client said to me that I don't trust you, you're a management person completely, and I do not really want to get into any discussion with you. So again, I asked him that, so I just want to clarify, is this the areas that we spoke about, is there a to work with. No, I can talk only about that to you. I said, sure, that could be a good start to go with. But there are times when your client talks to you something which is in the purview of maybe a discomfort, which is not a complete suicidal or homicidal talks, but it's in between, where you have to really take that call that, okay, what needs to be done? And the best way is to check with the client, how do you want to address this? Because again, confidentiality is very important. At the same time, safety of the employees who are working there is also important. So that's the space where I would say a coach can also go for supervisions at regular intervals and check what is coming out, maybe very context to context. But do not go and talk directly to anybody unless there is a permission from the client, apart from self-harming or harming others. If that is the case, you have all the right to breach the contract. But remember, whatever you do, keep the client informed. If there's something which has happened about being abusive and the person has really impacted somebody's life, it's important to educate them, the client, that it needs to be addressed. Without client's permission, or rather than acknowledging and inform the client, if you go ahead, it can end up into a loss of trust and intimacy, loss of confidentiality, and also it can give rise to your own ethical issue. So this is a catch-22 situation you need to be very sensitive in dealing with. But I always say that I would educate my client. I would talk to my client about this, just not jump into conclusions. So I'm going to pause here to check with everyone. How are we before I go there? If there are any questions or thoughts. Question to my mind of ISIF ethics, how do we draw boundaries of confidentiality? Yes, exactly. So I think from the ISIF code of ethics, what I'm aware, what I'm learning, if anything is about harming others or harming self, it could be ICF or humanity perspective. I'll go beyond ICF there, and I have to educate, because today in corporates you will some way or the other are going to encounter this because of the mental health rising high. Every day we see today in the newspaper somebody committing suicide. From corporates, people jumping out from the windows or the balcony. So these are rising issues. So how are you going, if you're working with that client and if you get to learn something, it's always nice to breach that confidentiality, because here the client safety is more important than the permission. So my contract goes more to save my client then. So that's something which resonates to me, Hemant. It's a very powerful question, and it is so sensitive. Maybe also I would invite the coach to go for supervision, a peer supervision, or maybe a professional supervision, because these are two technical things, requires good support. Maybe I would say I want a community support there.
Paras, just a thought here. One of the things which I had learned during my corporate experience was in the agreement that we make for the coaching. This part is already noted that the confidentiality will remain until unless there is something which comes about harming self or harming others, in which case it will be notified to the relevant.
Yes, I like that, Kalpesh. The agreements are all there. The psychological agreements is what I'm aiming at. Yeah, because that somewhere is beyond the words. The wordology said that everybody knows that, if there is any of the breaching will go, how many people read it, no matter I reinstate in my coaching contracting sessions as well. But when this is growing bigger than that, so how I'm going to also ensure that my client safety comes in first that way. So I just, in the agreement to you, I just like to build in that maybe if it's something very dysfunctional, it's important to raise that.
Yeah, thanks, Paras. Yeah.
Thank you. So Hemant says, is it a breach or we create the agreement accordingly? Okay. Now, so in what context, Hemant, about what you're asking?
Yeah, something similar to what Kalpesh mentioned, that, we drawing boundaries of confidentiality upfront, even before getting into the engagement, right? So, yeah. So I think that is a question that Kalpesh also asked, and I think you answered that to that extent. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So Dale says that as HR, when I get into coaching agreement, is it agreed in advance when to raise an alarm? I think, yeah, if I'm working as an internal HR and I'm working with a client, I may not have a coaching agreement per se in a written format, because again, organizations legally do not allow internal coaches to create agreements. That's what I'm aware about. But if it's an agreement which is more like a proper contracting, that, okay, what is my role as a coach and what can I offer? And in that session, if the client says that I'm feeling very sad, or I'm feeling as if like it's not good, I don't feel good about my life anymore, it's rising alarm. I think it's a time for you to check with the client, talk to the client first, just to not give it up. Don't fear about it. Just talk to them. What exactly it is. I have received call from clients who said that, you know, you pick up my call right now, I want to commit suicide. I've gone through that space where actually I was so tense, nervous in the middle of the night at 11ish. And I spoke to the client for 10, 15, 20, 25 minutes and invited the client to please come and see me. And meanwhile, I had to inform the local authorities. I had his family member's number. I had to really call them up and say, I do not know where exactly, but the moment you sense it, please talk about it. And if you sense this is getting there, please bring it, raise. I mean, that's not about the contract. It's more about saving your clients. So that's where I could leave it to, because I've gone through situations where they were so different, difficult, and I had to really take that call of talking. And I feel that the best thing anyone requires is being with them and talk to them. Why somebody is calling me at that moment? Because they just want to hear some positive stroking that, hey, you're important. But I think we should not even get into there. The moment you find raising awareness there, just get going with it. Also, one of them has asked, Chakur has asked, if a client asks to tell something to some member of the family, do we put boundaries? Yeah, thanks, Chakur. I think that's what I was talking about, the family concepts, or in corporates, I've experienced that. Go and tell this gentleman that you should tell him, because he will listen to you, Paras. And I question whoever comes in that for the last 30 years, if this gentleman has not heard from you, why would he listen to me? I'm very curious. And I would like to explore with that person, because sometimes the scapegoats are brought in the coaching room, but somebody else needs coaching. So it's always nice to ask. I like the word in the start of the session, you spoke about curiosity. Ask curious questions to the person who is saying to you that go and tell him that he has to be nice, or tell her to be good. So it's important to draw boundaries and say, if I'm working with a client, it's between client and me. If I'm working with you, it's between you and I. If I'm working with your family, it's between the whole family system. But outside the contract, it's going to get into games, and further, it can discomfort you emotionally, psychologically. Okay, so maybe I'd like to move on to next now. Hope everybody is doing good. Okay, we all good? Okay, so let me go. So this is another thing that I have really experienced about how contracting is important in coaching. A contract is usually a visible, formal, and invisible relationship etiquette. So I look at a contract from two aspects. One is a written, legal. The other one is a psychological. A contract is audible, visible, formal, informal, written, spoken, everything. So I just not do legal contracting, but I also make sure a client is, we speak about what are the roles that I have to play, what is my role and what is not my role. When you have a contract with your client, it helps you to draw boundaries to what areas you can work with. So it also builds a lot of trust and intimacy with the 3 P's, which are called permission, protection, and potency. So if you see how much permission do you have in the relationship to work with the client, and how much protection you need to give, there's always going to be the tug of war. But if you're able to balance it out with the client, it will make the client very potent, and the discussion will go to a different level altogether. But if you're too much protecting the client and not support, and too much protecting the client without getting into asking the client, it may end up just having a very intellectual conversation. Also, contract promotes confidentiality for me. It is something which helps the client, holds the client and me responsible for the same. It defines boundaries and bridges that, okay, what is working well, what can we do, what we cannot do. It is addressed well. So maybe my conversation with the client, I spend a lot of time in contracting that maybe this is okay, this is not okay in the relationship. What can we talk, what we cannot talk about. Topics are clearly defined in the beginning of the session, beginning of the intervention itself. Also, if I look at the contract, there are many other things about the contract is objective driven. So client and you are pretty aware about what you are engaging into. It is a timeline, it has a time limit, because if you do not have a closure in a contract, it creates, the client keeps on coming back to you with some issues, they keep procrastinating, it impacts your whole relationship. A contract has an outcome. A contract is for self, others, and environment. When I say self, is about accounting self, others, relationship, situations. So as a coach, I'm raising my mindfulness awareness to account myself, account others in that relationship that I'm engaged in, account the relationship between the client and me, and the various situations that are going to be coming across. How am I going to be mindful about that? Whether it could be transference, projections, and other things. Then in the self, I've also asked that what permission do I have and I don't have in the current relationship with my client. The more and more I'm aware about this is raising my awareness of contracting. Contracting also sets norms and etiquette, what is okay, what is not okay. The role clarity of what is my role as a coach and what is my not role as a coach. I'm pretty clear in my contract. Or if we are clear with this contract, then it supports your discussion further. Also in your contract, if you're clear about goals or expectations, responsibility and accountability, or goal which is clarified, verified at regular intervals, helps you. So this is where I would like to pause here. This is where you see this all, in a very nerve system stuff, very designed in a different way. If you have any question on contracting, because what I'm trying to build up here is how do you build boundaries with contracting. Your contract will support you, guide you, like the Babaji and the lamp, which is going to help you which will help you to move further with that particular end in mind, or the habit too of late Stephen Covey. So if there are any questions for me, I have some activities for you all. So, okay, so Jeshri is asking about explain potency, permission, protection, or permission, protection, and clear. Can you explain potency? So for me, I think the potency is the co-creation of how much permission and protection is given to the client, the co-creation of that client evolving in every coaching session. Like, for example, if I'm working with a client who in a corporate and say that every meeting, I would like you to be there, and that's my contract with you. That's what I want to share with you. That gives the client so much of confidence that, hey, this man who I'm working with is somebody working for me, though it's an organization thing. So the potency that what the person evolves in the journey is very, very, with a lot of freedom, a lot of feeling of, hey, I can trust this person, I can evolve. And I've seen when there's a lot of permission and protection, the client comes out in their life as a winner, and they fly high in their lives because there is no fear or doubt that, is this coach my coach, or is it a management consultant sent by the organization? So I'm not playing the role of a bond, but I'm playing the role of a pure coach who is working only for the clients and protecting the client. In fact, there are presentations where client, I say that all the presentation of the progress, please prepare a PPT, please present it. I'm going to sit and endorse you for your progress. Again, that builds a lot of confidence that this person is not having separate meetings. And I ensure that I don't have any separate meetings during my contract with that client, with that organization, because that again creates a lot of self-doubt. If the issues are sensitive, then they are worried. So how can I provide that protection? Another way of working with permission and protection is just everybody, like whoever watching me right now, if you happen to see your clients, meet your clients, maybe one of the evenings in a mall, okay? And how would you like to look at it? Do you want to ignore the client, or do you want to smile at the client? Please reply ASAP basis right now. What would you like to do there? Your reply will help us out to understand what's going to come out. So please, if you're listening to me, check it out. Whether would you like to ignore the client, or whether you would like to say a smile and say hello to the client. Yeah, greet the clients. Of course, great. Greet the clients. Definitely say hello, smile. Great. They're great for participating. And that's where the conflict is, everyone. We're talking about confidentiality. We have just breached it unconsciously because of the Indian etiquette that we learned, Aditi Devo Bhava. I would like to go and welcome people. How sure are you that the client wants to talk to you? And I asked it in a very intentional way to get your response to what you are planning to do. So when I say hello to the client, okay, that means the client is getting exposed that he's coming or she's coming to you for a coaching. So it's very important, again, to go back to drawing boundaries. That if I tell my client, if I see you outside anywhere, I would not say hello to you unless you say hello to me or smile at me. That's where I look at confidentiality. That's where I look at, hey, you're very important, but I have to maintain boundaries. So what if I follow the lead of the client? How do other people know you are his or her coach? That's the whole point. When I share to the client that I'm protecting you completely, how are you creating psychological protection to the client? Where is it contracted well to the client that if I see you outside, I'm going to say hello to you? Now, I do a lot of clients who are from South Bombay. They like to switch off the CCTV. They say, I will give you in writing that nothing would be, nothing would happen, anything, we would take the responsibility. So what I'm learning about my clients here is clients are not very comfortable unless it's contracted, unless you talk to the client. If you really want to say hello to the client, check it out. Are you contracting that as well? The more you contract, the more you're protecting the client. Remember that. It's not a debatable question. It's up to you. This is what I'm learning and sharing with all of you. And I totally acknowledge from your perspective, because there's no right or wrong answer. It is all varied perceptions. So this is my learning, where I was told that you don't need to get endorsed by me. So maybe next time I do not want you to say hello to me as well. And that, when I took supervision, I learned that, hey, yeah, that's breaching the boundaries. Did I contract with that client? My supervisor asked me one simple question, that what was the contract? And it answered everything for me, that, hey, I should not really feel bad about it because it's not what was contracted. So I learned a lot from that experience, that how certain clients are not comfortable. It's a contract in the first session, that if it's okay, let's go for it. If it's not okay, it's fine. So more detailed contracting, more clarity about confidentiality. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to, okay, there's another question, Marina. This is both ways. If the client sees me and would like to greet me, how can I ignore? No, absolutely. It's up to you how you want it. You be flexible, the way your preference is. If you say to your client that, okay, if you see me outside, if you want to say hello, I do not want any of my clients to say hello to me, that's fine too, because that's your contract. But if you want to say hello to them and you're happy about it, go ahead. But be very mindful, because some clients do not like to endorse coaches. They do not, because there is a shame and stigma in the society for going for any mental health. But if it's a gym, if I have to show my dole shole, if I have to show my flat abs or muscles and things, I would like to endorse that. But if it's about my mental health, I don't want, it's a shame for me, or what will people think? But I see the generation, millennials or Gen Z who are just 20, 21, they feel a pride. Hey, I've got a coach. Like I've been coaching somebody who's the age of 15 and 14, very proudly says, hey, I've got a coach. And the best part is the partnership. I tell them, please don't call me sir, uncle, call me Paras. And that really raises their accountability at a very different level. So again, the point comes at is that contracting is very important to everything that you can support the client's growth. Yes, Hemant, I agree with you. Yeah, totally. There is a growing need for supervision to address the gray areas. So yeah, so I'm also a supervisor from European Mentoring Coaching Council as a coach supervisor. In India, we only 2 currently. So if anybody supports ICF Pune chapter requires any supervision support, please feel free to reach out. We can always do something for our coaching community. Also other chapters, I'm sorry, all other chapters, feel free to reach out. We can always talk about it. So I have got some exercise for everybody. I'm mindful about the time. I'm going to be giving only 10 minutes for this exercise. I will put up 4 situations. Out of that, you pick up whichever situation you want to discuss in the team. We will just take, say, about 8 to 9 minutes for this. Pick up any situation and it's a dilemma. What are your thoughts about it? How are you going to look at it? Okay, so let me put that to you. Here is there are 4 dilemmas. We can put, I've put that, you can copy it. If you can just give say about 7 minutes, or Jayashree, you're the best person to decide for Timex. So maybe you let me know any one question within your team, you'll have to pick it up and talk about it. What are your thoughts? The first one is if the client is undergoing relationship issues and projects it on the coach, how can you draw safe boundaries? The second one is if the client is coming for the session for life coaching and the client family member wants to get coached, how are you planning to draw boundaries? If the client shares its narratives in the session that has been abusive verbally and being violent at home, which is not a space for the coach to delve into, how will you like to explore this? And the last one is, I am there for you. It's coming from a very famous Hindi dialogue, Main Hoon Na. So that's in English, it's I'm there for you. How can you be mindful about this as a coach when you're using it? So these are the 4 things. You pick up any one in your team which excites you, have a discussion on the same, and anything key learning comes in, whenever you come back, you can put that on the chat. I will also be traveling in different groups to see how it's going. So Jayashree, would you like to help me for the same, to divide the same thing, divide into a group of 5? And that would be great. So we're 35 right now. So
I'm just doing that. Yes.
Yeah. So everyone, you can accept the invitation. The moment you get in, you get, how much time should we give, Jayashree?
7 is okay. It's 6:30 right now.
Yes. 7 minutes sounds good to me as well.
Hi.
Hi, you've not been assigned to any room? I will do that. You would like to join, right?
Yes, yeah.
Fair enough. I'll just assign. I've assigned you, Amit. I don't know. Okay. Shall I assign you, Kannan, to one of the rooms?
Jayashree, is the session over? What
No,
more?
no, people are gone to breakout rooms, but I don't know why why I'm not able to see. Yeah, okay. Okay. I had put you in room number 5, but okay, I'll just put you in.
Yeah, no worries.
Just check.
It's amazing group, yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah. Good people.
This group, yeah.
So this is your office?
Yes.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I can see. Oh my God, too many frames.
Too many.
Now, this year I have decided for myself that until and unless I complete my MCC, at least submission, I'm not going to register for any course.
When are you planning out?
I think now I should do anytime now. But I think no, I still need some more, I think some more time.
Sure. Let me know anytime if you need support.
Yes.
Hi, Vinay. How was your discussion with your team? Are you on mute, Vinay?
Ultimately, Paras, there's just two of us discussed this, Shripad.
Okay.
And me. The other two were still muted. So neither did we see them, nor they unmuted themselves.
Okay.
So Shripad created this situation and we discussed that. Would you like to hear it from Shripad or?
No, just generally, how was your experience? Would like to just know which one did you select?
Shripad raised the issue that there was a client whom he was coaching. He didn't spell out an area in which he was coaching. Certainly, that in one such the coaching session, maybe the same or in the next session, coachee comes back and says, look, I have some relationship issues also, and I would like to discuss that with you. So there were 2 points. Should we discuss should we outright reject it? Look, it is in nowhere connected with this, the area of coaching or the dilemma that I'm addressing with you, and therefore reject it. Or if the coach feels that if there is something really relevant which is likely to impact the end result of the coaching, he might as well like to go a little deeper exploration into this. And therefore, a permission can be given to him, in which case all this confidentiality clauses and all that could be followed through. And then if he hears it out, because outright rejecting may not be right.
Absolutely.
You never know. So he cited a situation that while I'm coaching him, the manager comes into play and he said, look, manager said so and so to me, or something like that. I said, then the manager becomes an important stakeholder. And if he becomes an important stakeholder, then I go back to the systemic coaching aspect that he also must be contracted for it. And we go a little more deeper into this.
Thank you. Thank you, Vinay, for sharing that. Hope everybody had a wonderful time talking about the dilemmas, and maybe if there are any key learnings, feel free to put that on the chat, any key learnings that you had so far, because we're almost another 20 minutes, we'll be closing this program. So if there are any key learnings that you felt you had, please feel free to put that on the chat. I'm moving on to the last slide of the learning space of the mental health. So the next question that raises is coaches, how are you going to draw boundaries for self? So these are few things from my experience I have placed it. These are something which really helped me to learn from my supervision, from my self-exploration, from my self-coaching, from journaling, peer coaching, everything that I could do to the best of my capacity. So one is about decompression. Like if I do back-to-back coaching, like I have a client from 11 to 1 and then maybe 1:10 to 2:10 or something like that if I'm doing, just be mindful that sometimes there are transferences you carry and you start projecting on the other client. It's very important to at least give a gap of half an hour, 45 minutes, where you are easing yourself, you are doing something of your own, or you're giving your me time to it. Otherwise, it ends up with a lot of frustration. And sometimes if you had a very intense session, you may carry that energy on the client and it may dilute the whole session into something dysfunctional. So one of the boundaries that I would like you to do is, no matter how busy you are in your coaching interventions, very important to give that spacing out time. The more and more, at least an hour, 45 minutes, at least 30 minutes is fair enough. If you have a visiting client, please make sure that you do not people can have a gap of at least half an hour. Because I encountered a session where this client knew the other client and they were having tough times. And my client told me, Paras, please next session, please give a break or let me know because I do not want to bump into somebody whom I'm not very comfortable. So there's a lot of learnings from me itself in my journey of coaching. I could take it up. So decompression is more like a psychological resting yourself and calming yourself and then proceeding further. The second thing that a coach can also work to draw boundaries for self-care is taking supervision. There are many models of supervision you can learn. If you want to learn more, I can share with you. 7-9 model is one of the basic one, but also you can take on transaction analysis. There are ego states and games and symbiosis. There are various models you can use for supervision. So taking supervision after every 30 hours, 20 hours helps you to be in the moments with the client. So coach supervision is growing right now. Earlier it was more like a counseling supervision where every after 20, 25, 30 hours of trial, you work with a supervisor to check it out if there are any blind spots or if there is a struggle or a pattern that you see about your coaching style is coming out or emerging. So this really helped me a lot to work. There are two parts. One, it could be a formal supervisor, it could be a peer supervisor. You read certain books and you get to know the knowledge of that and you see the demonstration so that you can start working on it. But be mindful, supervision is a power game. You need to be mindful there is a partnership, safety, protection to your supervising. The third one is self-coaching. This is something which my sister Ekta, she's also an MCC from ICF and also EMCC master practitioner. She created this tool on self-coaching. I really liked it. So I'm just going to share with you, if you get time, you can always have a look at that blog. So I really like this. This talks a lot about how could you have a little running model, a tool that you can work in identifying your triggers, and then becoming aware and taking an action for it. So I really like that perspective as a self-coaching tool for a lot of coaches who have now been practicing for such a long time. Not just ICF, but I think you may be doing a lot of mentoring and coaching, so your reflective spaces are assumed to be higher. So if they are not yet, maybe this tool could be a good start, or else if it's there, this tool can enhance it. Then professional coaching, please be aware that I go for at least 4 sessions or 3 sessions in a month for coaching. I sit on the other side and work on a lot of my areas. I'm not a person with an MCC with 2 horns, a PCC with 2 horns. I'm a simple human being who is vulnerable, who also has his emotions, issues to deal with, and which is okay to feel that. So my invitation to everybody is, at regular intervals, do go for your professional coaching or peer coaching, but not like a practice session. A proper professional, like for example, if I connect with Jayashree or Colonel Vinay, I would probably say, maybe I would like to work with you, and then you don't need to work with me, you can work with somebody else. And then that way I can support somebody to work with me. So there are no exchange of transferences here as well. You be nice to me, I'll be nice to you. No, but taking that support helps a lot more. In this pandemic, okay, please remember that you are not Mr. Perfect or strong. Like, I'm a strong boy, I'm a strong girl. Okay, these are messages that we get at a very early age. But remember, every warrior also has to take a rest. Okay, it's important to say, be strong in your practice. I do not want you to cry with your clients, but work on your emotion states. If you do not address them, they will come out unconsciously in a form of transferences, which can be triggered any point of time. So there are 2 drivers in TA, transaction analysis. One is called as be perfect and be strong. These are messages given to us at a very early age. We tend to hold them accountable and say, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be strong, no matter, I went through a lot of my anxiousness that, hey, this whole pandemic, being locked in the house, no matter I'm an introvert when it comes to working, me and my laptop, but the feeling was that my clients are calling me, telling me they're going through, listening to that also created overwhelming experience within me, and which is okay to feel it. If you're a coach or a mentor or a therapist or a counselor, that's a role that you play. You're not an ultimate perfectionist version of it. So be a little sensitive to it yourself as well, or be mindful about your Your some sorts of strengths that you say that I want to be strong enough. I can be strong, but at the same time, I need to acknowledge some versions of me which is not strong yet, or which is going through some process. So the invitation to all of you is to be mindful about coach mental health. You are taking care of everybody, and I'm so happy to hear that we all are working to raise humanity, to take care of humanity, to support people. Okay, so it's very important to support ourselves, like the oxygen message that we always get when we're traveling. Wear your mask before you wear somebody else's mask, because otherwise you'll transfer it on the client, and the client would have to go through all that thing. So for that, I have got some invitation for all of you. The competencies that I covered in today's session I addressed was more on ethics, contracting, and creating awareness. If you feel some sort of reflections you want to write, you can send it to, email it to Jayashree, and then she can email it to me, or the committee heads, whoever it is. If you do feel like you want to reflect by your own, it's also great, as long as you're reflecting. So moving to the last part that I would like to invite and talk to you a little bit about what do I do and why do I address Tavamitram. So Tavamitram is something about we are building emotionally strong worlds with one session at a time. So in the year 2015, we came up with the idea when me and my sister went through our own depressions and anxiety way back in our life at the early age. We always wanted to do something for the society. We never knew what's going to happen. We never knew how are we going to do that. But when I went through my REBT, I realized that Albert Ellis used to have Tuesday or Friday evenings. And I felt the need that we need to do something called as group coaching for less fortunate people in Hindi Marathi, so that as local people could enjoy and also get the understanding about the importance and magic of coaching. So we also train some people there as a Mitra mentors. So Tavamitram, this particular thing, you can always go through it. So we also train our Mitra mentors almost for 240 hours now in the last 1 year. Now this year I have to just calculate how many hours is completed. They've gone through proper trainings to support people. They are not coaches, they are not psychologists, they are all people passionate to work. And we came up with this campaign this year, My Mental Health, My Priority. This is something which, why am I bringing it here? There's a context also. It's not about just promoting this program. So this particular project started in the month of January, and we wanted to make it more commercialized and things. But in the March, when the lockdown took place, we realized that this is required for people development, not for commercials use only. So we decided to come for Tavamitram as My Mental Health, My Priority campaign. It's a free certification program, which covers topic as, it's in English, covers topic like depression, anxiety, also all the concepts of transaction analysis. So coaches who are looking for supervision learnings, if you really want to master it, this is for you. And if you want to gift it to anybody, to pay it forward, it's just to send the link to people. If they're corporate setup, like we have now tied up with big companies who are going for 10,000 employees for this program. We've almost crossed 6,000 plus registrations online already now this in the month of October. Latest is 6,380, something like that. So this covers a lot of concepts which can be very powerful for coaches for self-upgradation. If you notice, I also shared here that a coach also needs to keep constant upgrading. So maybe without any investments, you could probably go through this particular program, have a look at this. It's tavamitram.org, and organizations could benefit. We have a GDPR, General Data Protection Act. So you could create your own dashboard and share it with your employees. It can go at one go, 10,000 employees can go through it. So your IDs and all personal data is protected when you're going for a corporate setup. So we also offer some sessions in case if you want, after you attend the program, you want to have a free discussion with us, feel free to reach out to us as well. This is something, a video that I would like you, we have time? No, we do not have time, so I'll send this particular thing. Also, this program, My Mental Health, My Priority, is coming in Hindi. We recently launched on 10th of October for India, as in, so that Indian people can also, who are non-English speakers, can also access this. The whole project is going to get in Hindi. We do not have any donors. We are purely managing on our own, me and my sister. So it's taking time, but we are sure we are getting a lot of blessings from people across the globe as global volunteers. So this is a lot of details that you can go through it. We're also offering currently free psychometric assessment on mind-body well-being. So, and there's another link we created was confession link, in case if you have, if anybody wants to, without any name, want to just share their reflections, feel free. This is me and my sister Ekta. We are very proud to say my mental health is my priority, and what about you? So on this note, I would like to close my session and hand it over to Jayashree and everybody. And I would like to thank everyone, including Jayashree. I want to thank Vivek. I want to thank Kalpesh, okay, who have been in touch with me and supporting mental health, Pune chapter, and all other chapters who have been with us today. It is an honor, and I wish you all the best and stay connected. If you want this PPT, you can check with Jayashree. She's the right person. If you want to touch base with me, it's Dr. Paras at, I'll just type it on the chat. You probably can connect with me.
Kalpesh, are you going to take a screenshot of the participants?
I'd like to do that.
So everybody will have to switch on their videos for a moment.
Yeah. It was lovely meeting everyone. Jayashree, thank you once again.
Thank you, Paras.
So Paras, you know, from all of us, a digital clap for you will be. Can you all just give him a clap, all of us? I'll just take a screenshot with that. Thank you. Just give me a moment. Just give me a moment. We are more than 25 people. I need to take 2 screenshots.
Yes.
Okay, continue doing that. You all look good when you
good exercise.
It's a good exercise.
ICF recommended exercise.
Wonderful. Okay, great. Thank you. I've taken the screenshot, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Jayashree, I just wanted to, you know, while you do the closing, to a lot of new members who are here on the call today, I'm going to put up the WhatsApp group link for the ICF Pune chapter. If you're not on that group, may I request you to join that WhatsApp group so that you can keep getting all the updates for the chapter. And we'll anyways, all those people who have registered, will add you to the mailing list so that all the initiatives that are happening from ICF Pune chapter do come across to you, and you can choose to join us for those. So that's 2 things which I'll do on the group chat. Jayashree, over to you. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you. Thanks, Paras, for a wonderful session. I think it was very, very helpful, very useful for all of us. And of course, from this, what we are taking, of course, is also the reflective part for all of us, right? I mean, it is not like you're not giving us answers. I mean, you're just you're just teaching us how to think. And we just need to think and reflect and find out our own ways. But the 3 Ps will certainly stay with me for a long time. So thank you, people, for joining us. I think there are 3 more events that I would like to just let you know about. So there is one event on 20th of October 20 by Mumbai chapter by Leon Vanderpoel, again on coaching as a healing modality. So somehow this month seems to be, just coming together on a similar subject. So that's a 20th October Mumbai chapter. I'll post the, that invite and the link on our chapter WhatsApp group. Secondly, one important and happy announcement is that ICF Pune chapter has reached, a partnership agreement with NHRD and Pune chapter. And that is for spreading coaching awareness amongst CHR professionals and the community in general. So 29th October will be our first webinar, which will be titled as Coaching Works. Again, you will get the creatives for that. And of course, as always, 5th November would be our Ask Me Anything Coach, which will be the first Thursday of November. And November chapter session, which will be a month from today, is going to be a Diwali party session. So, we'll keep you updated. Thank you. Thanks all of you. And while you are logging off, you could just type in the chat box. And of course, many of you are expressing gratitude towards Paras, but anything else that you're taking away for yourself, please type it. Thank you.